Hi, I'm Simren.
And I'm Kelsey.
And we are students from the Miami Valley School in Dayton, Ohio. Our school's mission is to become compassionate global citizens and self-sustaining learners.
But our society today shows us that chaos and uncertainty keep us from growing, when in reality, they should make us strive to discover the unknown.
So in our American history class, we are reading the American Pageant. And from Unit 1 of the American Pageant, we picked the main themes that we feel would be best to describe the discovery and growth of the New World. So those two main themes are industrialization and conformity.
The people wanted freedom, but ultimately they set themselves and future generations up for a controlled society through electing rulers to voice their opinions for the general well-being rather than an individual progression.
Today's world has become so industrialized that everything we do follows a system of turning gears. But really, every day is different and time you will never get back.
We should be more focused on the domestic lifestyle rather than living a contained, controlled, predictable, and repeatable life. We should look to be more creative and adaptive and self-correcting, not conforming to the typical assembly line lifestyle.
So think back to Christopher Columbus. If he hadn't tried to explore and discover new land and routes through the waterways, what would the outcome have been? And the Revolutionary War? What if the Sugar Acts or Stamp Acts haven't had gotten into effect? How differently would that have shaped America?
We have the power to do amazing things that can positively shape our future and become an innovative and experimental society, acting on a more personal level than generically categorizing all people into the same subjective viewpoint. Our generation has more brain capacity than our predecessors, but they are stunting us from forming a solid base for the future that we will be in charge of running.
So in order for the colonial societies and settlers to succeed, they needed to work together and create guidelines on how to run an effective society. So although this didn't always work and conflict eventually did rise up, we believe these principles were necessary in setting the base for these early societies. But back then, they created these ideas solely off creativity and experimentation, while today it seems like we're at a standstill.
The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines conformity as behavior in accordance with the socially accepted conventions or standards. But the current socially accepted norms for our generation are to blend in with the crowd and agree with what you're told. We can break away from this conformity, even though it will cause uncertainty and chaos. It will produce more independent thought and lead us to becoming self-sustaining learners, pushing each other to reconstruct innovative thinking.
Transitioning from following the crowd to being independent, creative, and innovative can be a tedious process, but it can truly only take one person to start this kind of movement.
We want to produce independent thought rather than forcing opinions into your head that you don't agree with. Break away from conformity and try to make your life individual.
In colonial times, an example of breaking away from the norm was when the colonists were fighting the British soldiers. Thomas Paine was the man to stand out and preach total independence from England, and he introduced the idea of republicanism. Most people, including prominent revolutionaries, were pledging their allegiance to the religious throne while their troops were fighting on the battlefield. Thomas Paine challenged the norm by introducing this new idea of republicanism by taking the risk of being persecuted.
Another example of standing up to make a change would come from Bacon's rebellion. Nathaniel Bacon ignited major resentment for landless former slaves. He stood up for the frontiersmen who had been pushed to the backcountry to find land. He stood up for these servants and ultimately started this rebellion to break away from the use of indentured servants.
As times have progressed, we've gone into the motion of repetition and regularity. We believe that by standing out, like some of the people we have seen from Unit 1 and the American Pageant do, like Nathaniel Bacon and Thomas Paine, we can successfully change and become an innovative society and break this habitual trend.
Our generation has the potential to reconstruct our thoughts into more innovative and creative ideas, and have the technology to spread those ideas worldwide. We can make this change by individually taking a stand to break conformity.